I'm Sarah Geltz, and I'm a senior partner at the Kendrick Law Group here in Maitland, Florida. I specialize in business law, asset protection, and real estate work.
Hi, I'm Carina Leeson. I'm a partner at the Kendrick Law Group. I handle family law matters, collaborative cases, and mediations.
Today I'm having a conversation with Carina about business and divorce and kind of the interplay between the two and the different ways that your business can be impacted by a divorce, whether it's your divorce or the divorce of a business partner. Divorce clients that own businesses, how do you kind of navigate what their next steps are?
That's a great question, Sarah, and I try to have a very comprehensive approach to that. I really want to find out what my clients' goals are. And a lot of times people are just coming to me for information at first. And so they're not even necessarily contemplating a divorce, but they need to know what some of their options are, what they should be doing so that they can plan properly. If they're ready to proceed in a divorce, then we certainly have to get more information about the business. That's where I would certainly recommend a particular process, the collaborative process in that case, where we can pull in those additional attorneys and get that expertise, whether it's also getting a business valuation, finding out what their goals are with the business. Or do they want to continue to maintain it? Do they want to sell it? Are they the ones running it? Are they a silent person in the business? So there's a lot of discussion, I think, gathering the information necessary to have those conversations, to build those options, and to figure out what process that they really will benefit from the most going forward.
The other thing that whole consultation process brings into it, whether it's the divorce or the business, is if there's any opportunities with business documentation. Because like you said, if you're valuing things, dividing things, selling things, you need to make sure you have the proper documentation to discuss, how things are going to be split up. I think we saw in the case that we worked with, there were some things that needed to be addressed as far as making sure their structure was completely intact. They understood their structure, but to make it clear for the transition and going forward, there were some opportunities to kind of firm up their corporate documents and formalize some things. And that's, again, where our interplay and our relationship came in very handy, because we were able to address that in-house without multiple retainers across multiple practices and everybody not necessarily communicating. I mean, by having all those parties in the same place, you and I could seamlessly communicate. And I think we probably shortened up that whole process for the clients by weeks.
So Sarah, a lot of times I have clients, and one of the largest assets or one of the biggest income producing assets that they have is a family owned business. And clients are always wanting to know their options, how to handle that in the context of a divorce. And so we're always trying to come up with some creative options, whether it's through the collaborative process or mediation. Can we talk a little bit about some of those options?
Yes, sure. And it actually really does come up a lot. And one thing that I see and kind of try to address at the beginning of the business planning process is trying to get in front of that. Planning from the beginning when you're setting up for proper succession, whether it's your divorce, whether it's passing on the business interests, or even just planning with business partners, because you have options. If you're going through a divorce and you own a business with your significant other or with your spouse, you really have some limited possibilities as to what you can do. You can sell the business and split the assets. That's going to involve valuations, and is there one individual that has a stronger equity position? Depends on how it's owned and how it's structured. You can, in some rare cases, continue to run the business together. You may have situations where it's a professional services type business where you're an attorney or a dentist or a physician, and you may have to split it because you may not be able to have ownership in the business, but that exiting spouse may have some equity in the business. Or you can just sell the business altogether and everybody walk away. Typically when you're working with, especially in your collaborative practice where you're really kind of negotiating how things happen, how do most of the people who are coming into your divorce situations, what are their goals? What are they trying to achieve generally?
Well, that's a great question, because a lot of couples, especially ones that are dealing with a family business in their divorce, they really need to consider the process option that is going to be the most beneficial to them. Litigation, I believe, is something that should be used as a last resort. Some of the things that you touched upon, having the need to get a business valuation, when folks go into court, the judge is really going to be picking one valuation over another. There's not a lot of option building that goes on in that process, and the judge is also limited in what they can do in the disposition of that business. Whereas in the collaborative process, and I think we had the pleasure of working on a collaborative case last year together, there was a family-owned business between the spouses, and we were able to come up with some really creative options for them to continue to maintain their business post-divorce.
And facilitate the buyout, because that's a lot of times that comes into play. One spouse doesn't necessarily have the liquidity to buy out that entire option. So that's where there's really some advantages in a firm like ours, with the family and the business kind of going hand in hand, that we can work with them to figure out. And like in that case, it was, a buyout over time with, share percentages transferring over time. That I think was very critical in getting that done. The other thing I think that is really important for a lot of business owners is the thing about a public divorce or a litigated divorce. Everything becomes public record. Most people don't want all of their business aired out publicly like that, especially when it comes to a business, because perception is everything. And you're doing business with an entity, even especially if it's, a law firm or professional services, you don't necessarily want the perception of your business being, oh, it's going through this nasty, prolonged divorce, and I wonder how that's going to impact the service that I'm getting from that.
You make a great point about privacy, Sarah. What people don't really realize is that when they're litigating a case in court, their financials are part of the public record. In the collaborative process, those records are maintained confidential, and for the most part, their divorce is private, and that includes their personal finances, but more importantly, the business finances. And that's really critical for people who own family businesses.
One of the things that I see a lot when I'm discussing with my business owners, how to structure things from the outset, we touch on all the eventualities. It's uncomfortable to talk about, but it's really important that you share with your attorney everything to make sure that you're structured properly. And we talk about the collaborative process, because where I think collaborative, if it comes in, is really useful is you have the advantage of having that financial neutral, you have the psychological component or whatever, that piece of it where you can really talk the parties through the emotion, how to divide things up, how to be fair, how to arrive at the appropriate price, because we're not experts in all of those things and we don't have a crystal ball to see what's going to happen. But I think having those outside professionals as part of the process allows you to really tailor what's going to be best. If the goal is, the longevity of the business and having it continue, that allows you to do that. And that's where I see a huge benefit for business owners with collaborative, or at least having those resources in a group like ours where we can call upon each other to really, holistically approach all of our clients.
So I think it's really important, if there's a business owner or there's a business that's part of a dissolution of marriage action, it's really important to get the information. So whether they're contemplating a divorce or they're ready to get a divorce, they should immediately contact Kendrick Law Group and get the information needed, not only with respect to their dissolution of marriage action, but also what the implications are regarding their business. And that's something that we can handle for them here at Kendrick Law Group.
Yeah, and I think we really have a great opportunity, because not only can they set up an appointment with you to discuss the divorce, if there's probate involved, we have that opportunity here. You and I can schedule consults together if there's business questions, because often people don't understand what their business entails. So we could work together on consults like that, or have, staggered where they discuss their divorce, they discuss anything that they need to do business-wise. Or if you have a business owner that is contemplating changes in their life, they should at least have a consult, work with their business attorney, call us here, we can sit down and go through the documentation that they have to make sure that they're properly structured when they do make that next step and have that divorce consultation, and they can go into that armed, knowing, whether they want to approach it through that collaborative process. 9 times out of 10, I would say that's probably a better fit for a business owner than taking that litigation route of last resort. I love calling it that, because it truly can be exhausting for people, especially business owners. And if you want to focus on the business, we may have a better approach that we can talk them through.
Well, and that's exactly right. We want people, especially business owners, we want them focusing on their business and the enterprise, and continuing to be successful and thinking about that and focusing about that, rather than focusing on their divorce.
Thank you so much for watching today.
Make sure you like and subscribe.